I do have time. Okay. Yeah, I do want to. I want to take my 5 minutes for sure. The question here is really not so much about Article 370. The fundamental question here is about the consent of the people. If something is being carried out, if my time. If something is being carried out for people's welfare, for their development, then why does it need tens of thousands of troops being brought in? Why does it have to happen overnight without absolutely any consultation of the people, with placing even the pro-India politicians in prison and then depriving the population of the right to say anything? If it is for their good, then why won't anyone of them be allowed to say something about it? This is an egregious human rights violation. It goes against consent, goes against fundamental principles of dissent as they relate to democracy. And as people who are being claimed in the name of a democracy as rights-bearing individuals, this is something that they fundamentally should be allowed to do. This is arbitrary use of power with no accountability.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, and I believe you have something to contribute.
Yes, I'm actually dying to say something. So we recently, me and Atharzia, another Kashmiri, we compiled the first ever volume on women in Kashmir, entirely written by Kashmiri women scholars themselves. And the realities of it are astoundingly worrying. You know, there's the Kunan Poshpura mass rapes. There's various instances of sexual violence, the competing patriarchies of militarization and militancy that women have to face. But Kashmir is not backward when it comes to women's rights. In fact, compared to India, it has always been more progressive. In 1944, the New Kashmir Manifesto, this is important. This is important for the world to know. In 1944, the New Kashmir Manifesto actually specifically had a whole section on gender rights, which if you read today sounds progressive, and is. So Kashmiri women have always had their rights. In fact, much of what has been going on, this is a very colonial move on the part of the nation states around it, of claiming as if they are liberating Kashmiri women, as if they are mere territory. And in the aftermath of the revocation of Article 370, BJP leaders said, we are going to now marry fair Kashmiri.
The first thing somebody wants, before they want human rights, they want to live.
I've heard that rationale, but it still doesn't explain the lack of transparency to me. Ms. Kaul, could you address that?
Yes, absolutely. There's no justification whatsoever for what they're doing, and they know that, which is why it is important for them not to let people speak. In fact, elderly women in Srinagar who were protesting in Kashmir Valley were detained, arrested, released on the condition that they sign bonds saying that they won't speak to the media. This is just 2 days ago. So it is fundamentally not about violent actors. It is about knowing that what is being carried out is politically and constitutionally not right, and it doesn't have the support of people.
I'm sorry, let me stop you before my time runs out, because I just want to say as an observation here, and I wish we had more time for all of you to weigh in, that to me, when there isn't transparency, something is being hidden. And this is what really concerns me terribly.
The Indian government has justified the repeal of Section 370, et cetera, Article 370, as somehow a major step forward for women's rights. But they've then told me that this then relates to what if a Muslim Kashmiri woman married a non-Muslim man? I don't know how. And then property rights. Ms. Kaul, is Article 3, is the repeal of that somehow a step forward for women's rights?
It's absolutely not, although it is claimed that it is somehow going to enhance LGBTQ rights and women's rights, as if those people whose rights it would enhance are not Kashmiris as well. Moreover, on both of these cases, in the case of the LGBTQ rights as well as in women's rights, there are already prior judgments of the courts. I've got this here, that the Jammu and Kashmir High Court in October 2002, in a case on State and Others versus Dr. Sushila Sahni, struck down the proviso of the fact that the state subject with permanent residency law, according to which women marrying outsiders would lose their permanent status. So this was already removed in 2002, and it is a red herring to say that this is somehow going to help women's rights. Like with all of the other things, these are just instruments used to justify that, that emancipation and liberation narrative.
Yeah. And Dr. Kaul, you have the distinction of being both a scholar of democracy and feminism, as well as being the first Kashmiri woman ever to have a novel published in English. Would you weigh in on this particular issue of feminism
yes,
and women's
I want
rights?
to speak as a politics and IR person with that hat on. So I just want to say that you're absolutely right. This, when we express concern about enforced disappearances in other parts of the world, that is precisely why we should care. Parveena Ahangar, who's the chairperson of the Association of Parents of Disappeared People, whose son was a victim of that, and she's been leading that struggle for 20 plus years. On International Day of Disappeared this year, they were not even allowed to gather and mourn, something that they've done on the 10th of every month and at the end of August. So this is an elderly woman, who has led this campaign, who's been nominated for the Nobel Prize. People, activists, peaceful people even are not allowed that space. So everyone is being pushed towards this, this kind of, and as Angana pointed out, I do want to say that the Hindutva ideology, the political use of Hinduism, religion is neither a necessary nor a sufficient condition for violence. No religion is. So this is not about Hinduism. It's about the political use of Hinduism that is being made to convert India into a Hindu nation, where after the revocation of Article 370, BJP leaders have said, we want to go to Kashmir and marry fair women now. And that's literally, like, that's the level at which this whole thing is, that it's this exotic other. And the reason that all of this continues, the question of territorial integrity, it's really not simple. It's, yeah, the British did what they did, but we're in the world now. And as the statement says, outside your archives, the past is a prologue. The future is the story that we have to write right now. It's not a simple question of territorial integrity, because Article 370 according to which Kashmir had its own constitution, its own flag, and its control over defense, except for defense, telecommunication, and external affairs, Kashmir was autonomous. That autonomy has been literally taken away, overnight. And that was the article that was keeping that political dispute in some sort of a frozen zone. Now that's gone. And what we are fearing is the worst to come.
All right.